Long before he was the advocate to the beast Brock Lesnar, long before he was offering his services to CM Punk, long before he was writing television for the WWE, even long before his days leading a revolution in Extreme Championship Wrestling, Paul Heyman led a group of heel wrestlers in WCW known as the Dangerous Alliance. While the WCW incarnation of the group only lasted around a year, their formation helped boost WCW's viewership, something that World Championship Wrestling sorely needed at the time. Much of the first half of 1992 centred around the Dangerous Alliance as fans tuned in to see the group get their upcomings. Today's video looks at the Dangerous Alliance in WCW. The first iteration of the Dangerous Alliance did not happen in World Championship Wrestling, but rather the AWA. Calling himself Paul E. Dangerously, Heyman's AWA Alliance comprised of Adrian Adonis, who was trying to salvage some of his old tough guy image after spending years as a drag queen in the WWF, and also the original Midnight Express, Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey. This incarnation of the Dangerous Alliance did fairly well, with the Express winning tag gold and Adonis eventually challenging for the TV title. The group disbanded though in 1988 after Paul E and the Express left the AWA, while Adonis died that year in a van accident. Paul E Dangerously became an announcer on WCW television, a role that he got suspended from. It's been said that he lost this role due to leaking backstage information, while other reports say it was all done in kayfabe in order for Dangerously to become a manager once again. Let's go by what Heyman said himself, and Heyman said that he was suspended. Heyman said that WCW would have been happy to pay out the remainder of his contract, as he sat at home, but an opportunity arose when a new WCW signee was revealed at Halloween Havoc in 1991. The seeds were planted at Halloween Havoc 91 for the next incarnation of the Dangerous Alliance. Eric Bischoff, who was pretty much still working at the bottom of the company at this point, was doing parking lot interviews at the beginning of the pay-per-view, and up comes Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes. Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, then the tag team champions known as the Enforcers, assaulted Windham and Rhodes, breaking Windham's hand in the process. Later that same night, after weeks of appearances, the WCW Phantom showed up and destroyed Z-Man Tom Zank. After the WCW Phantom match, Eric Bischoff interviewed Paul E. Dangerously, who was accompanied by Madusa. Paul E. explained that while WCW may have fired him from his commentary duties, he still had his manager license, and his plan was to take down WCW in an act of revenge for getting fired. The Phantom then aligned himself with Heyman before revealing his identity to the world. The WCW Phantom was none other than Ravishing Rick Rude, and he would be getting a US title opportunity at the next Clash of the Champions show. Clash of the Champions 17 took place in Savannah, Georgia, and it would be quite an interesting night. In the weeks leading up to the clash, Sting was receiving mystery gift boxes, and we were all set to find out who was sending these boxes to Sting. The last box, revealed at the Clash of the Champions, contained Madusa, who distracted Sting long enough to allow Lex Luger to attack Sting and injure his knee. Sting was brought to hospital before Paul E. Dangerously announced that Sting would forfeit his US title to Rick Rude if he did not compete in the scheduled match. Sting made his way back to the arena from the hospital. The crowd popped huge when Sting made it back to the arena, but Rude was able to defeat the Stinger and become the United States champion. Paul E. admitted to working with Lex Luger all along to set up Sting so Rick Rude could become champion. Also at Clash of the Champions, the Enforcers were scheduled to face Dustin Rhodes and his mystery partner. Rhodes has to find a replacement tag partner due to the Enforcers breaking Barry Windham's hand at Halloween Havoc. So Windham and Rhodes make their way to the ring. Windham grabs the mic and announces his replacement, and out walks this. I'm sorry, but I still find this so funny. The dragon headgear looks very comical, and whoever was underneath this giant mask had trouble walking, as you can see him take baby steps all the way to ringside. Anyway, if you guessed that this was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, you win a prize. Steamboat and Rhodes defeated Anderson and Zbyszko to become tag champions. The following week, a proud Paulie Dangerously announced the formation of the Dangerous Alliance, featuring members Rick Rude, Madusa, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko. The two remaining spots were filled first by Bobby Eaton, which was a surprise as he had been a babyface for quite some time, and the WCW TV champion, the upcoming stunning Steve Austin. Immediate comparisons were made to the Dangerous Alliance and the Four Horsemen, and it was revealed on Heyman's DVD documentary that the group was initially conceived as an updated version of the Horsemen. That being said, the style and demeanour of the Alliance differed greatly from that of the Four Horsemen. The Alliance were all about no-nonsense business, getting into the ring and getting the job done, while the Horsemen were not afraid to show off their fancy suits and their lavish lifestyles. The Alliance couldn't have cared for flaunting their wealth or living luxurious lives. They only cared about defeating their competition. Each member was different than the other, making the group dynamic and different. The Dangerous Alliance went on to dominate WCW for the next 6 months, as Anderson and Eaton won the WCW tag titles back, and Austin held the WCW World Television Championship for quite some time. The Alliance mainly feuded with Sting, Ricky Steamboat, Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes and Nikita Koloff, culminating in an excellent War Games match at WCW Wrestle War 1992 that saw the Alliance take a defeat from Sting's squadron. If there's only one match you check after this video, make sure it's the War Games match at Wrestle War 92. It's one of the best War Games matches in WCW's history. The War Games match ended when Larry Zbyszko accidentally hit partner Bobby Eaton with a metal turnbuckle hook. This allowed Sting to lock an armbar on Bobby Eaton and force a submission. After the match, the Alliance argued and Zbyszko was kicked out of the group. From here, things not only got rocky for the Alliance, but also for WCW as a whole. Bill Watts had taken over booking duties, and while the Alliance were still key players in World Championship Wrestling, Watts was hell-bent on bringing in guys like Terry Gordy and Steve Williams and giving them monster pushes. And he was also hell-bent on pushing Vader. Just to make it clear, pushing Vader is not necessarily a bad thing, far from it. But this would mean he would be feuding with the top babyfaces of the company, something the Alliance had been doing for the past lot of months with good success. Their spots, pretty much, were getting taken up. That being said, Beach Blast 1992 in July is worth a watch. Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude had their classic 30-minute Iron Man match here, showing that WCW already had a more than capable main event heel wrestler in Ravishing Rick Rude. It's telling though that this Iron Man match was slapped right in the middle of the card, while Steve Williams and Terry Gordy worked in the main event. In saying that, do also take the time to go back and watch Beach Blast 1992. If you haven't saw this Iron Man match between Ricky Steamboat and Ravishing Rick Rude, you're in for a real treat. As the cracks were beginning to show, Halloween Havoc in 92 saw Paulie Dangerously rip apart Madusa, only for Madusa to fire back and beat Paul Heyman to the ground. Rick Rude had a terrible match this night as he faced Masahiro Chono, and Steve Austin was forced to tag with Steve Williams as Terry Gordy had already got himself fired from the company. Meanwhile, Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton were tagging up with Michael Hayes while jerking the curtain. Things were a mess, and soon enough, Rick Rude suffered a serious injury that took him out of his scheduled Starrcade match against Ron Simmons, and Paul Heyman also soon left the company. It wasn't that long afterwards that Bill Watts was fired from his position in World Championship Wrestling also, as it seemed his changes to WCW done way more harm than good. The Dangerous Alliance not only gave WCW a much needed boost in viewership during their first months as a tag team, but we can't overlook the one person who got a much needed push while in the faction, and that was stunning Steve Austin. We don't need to go into details of how successful Steve Austin turned out to be, but his first real break came when he was showcased as a member of the Dangerous Alliance. Sure, Steve Austin joined the faction as the TV champion already, but he got a certain amount of credibility when he joined the group, teaming up with guys like Arn Anderson and Ravishing Rick Rude. The end of the Dangerous Alliance, and the end of his WCW career, was enough to make Paul Heyman travel to Philadelphia, where he and Todd Gordon would change the wrestling landscape forever. In ECW, the Dangerous Alliance name was used once again, but it was clear that most people remember the WCW iteration much more fondly.